just wasn't happy anymore. All the things that I loved about being Marine, you just sort of take it for granted. And then all of a sudden it goes away, that sense of purpose, that camaraderie that you have in the Marine Corps. And you wake up one day and you're like, holy cow, like I'm just Josh. That was the hardest part of my whole transition, and figuring out how I go from Josh to continuing to serve and figuring out what that means for me, how I give back in a meaningful way, a way that I feel like I'm leveraging my strengths.
Mission Possible, which is a skills-based training, and there's some nice things about it. It teaches a lot of the skills of resiliency. It's it's free, it's self-paced, you don't have to go anywhere.
Well, I'll tell you what we're going to do today. We're going to DVNF will award Travis Manion Foundation $10,000 today. I'll send you an award letter after this, Josh. So make sure you
That's awesome.
me the address that you need to check to be served. I believe in what you're doing, honestly. I really do.
Hi, Josh.
Hi, good afternoon.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you also.
This is Dr. Marty Rossman. He is the founder of the Mind, Body, and Spirit, and we collaborated together and we created a Mission Possible platform for veterans that want to build that resiliency and so forth, and focus on that all life challenges can be managed. So, you're a guest, of course, and we're going to learn a little bit about you, what your background is and so forth, and what programs you have to offer in your Travis Manion Foundation.
Sure.
And just talk about, how can we build resiliency upon our veterans? So that's the topic.
Love it.
I want to say, Josh, that I'm just really impressed with what I saw on the website. And Joe knows so many incredible people that are reaching out and looking to help in so many different ways. And the way you are using, training veterans to mentor kids to build character in the future, and the fact that the veterans feel disconnected, so many of them feel disconnected from life or the community, and that I think you said as many as a third of kids say they never had a positive role model or someone to mentor them, and putting them together is another one. Joe's brought a couple other people doing things that are sort of similar but different, but it's bringing these people together, giving both ends purpose and training and positivity, and I just think it's fantastic. So.
Thank you. That's why I came here. So I didn't start the foundation. I came almost 10 years ago, but it was Travis's mom who started it, and I was a volunteer initially, going out mentoring youth through Travis Manion Foundation, and that's when I fell in love with it and said, this is what I want to do for my career.
Absolutely. Travis, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? I know you served in the military for 12 years, active duty, and did, I believe, 8 years reserve, retired, I believe, in 2021, I believe. If you can, just tell us a little bit about yourself and how was your military career and your transition aspect coming back into the civilian world?
Yeah, so I'm Josh Jabin. I work with Travis Manion Foundation. Like you said, I was active duty I was a Marine for 20 years total, the first 12 years on active duty, and then I served 8 years in the reserves in parallel with becoming the chief operating officer for Travis Manion Foundation. When I transitioned off active duty in 2013, that was still just after the Great Recession, and the topic of that time was all about veteran unemployment. I was told in the couple of years leading up to my transition about how difficult it was to get a job, and that was the focus. It was all about getting the job. And I was very proud of myself. I made what I thought was a successful transition. I got a job right away. The job was able to put food on the table. I had 2 young children. I had my wife and I had just got married and had our first house, and I could pay the mortgage. And while I'm patting myself on the back, all of a sudden, a couple months later, I realized I just wasn't happy anymore. All the things that I loved about being a Marine, you just sort of take it for granted. And then all of a sudden it goes away, that sense of purpose, that camaraderie that you have in the Marine Corps. And you wake up one day and you're like, holy cow, like I'm just Josh. I'm not Josh the Marine anymore. I'm not Major Jabin. I'm not Sir. I'm not, waking up every day knowing that I'm serving my country at a time of war. I'm just Josh. And that was the hardest part of my whole transition, and figuring out how I go from Josh to continuing to serve, and figuring out what that means for me, and how I give back in a meaningful way, a way that I feel like I'm leveraging my strengths, and what is my new community. And that's where Travis Manion Foundation came in for me. I started off as a volunteer, and I got very involved as a volunteer. And I love, our main program is about training veterans to mentor youth. And that's what I love doing. I was my last active duty unit. I was at the Naval Academy. I was teaching, and I really love teaching. I love mentoring. And so Travis Manion Foundation was a natural transition for me. And I'm so fortunate that I found it as a way to continue to serve alongside other veterans, and have that new community.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And just like mine, I did my 1,000 years as a Marine, retired as a sergeant major. I was the regimental sergeant major for our wounded warriors, so I would oversee the non-medical case management from active duty to reserve as well. That was a part of the regiment, as well as our Navy. And, I used to visit and transition and see all the Veterans Integrated Service Networks throughout the United States, all the VA hospitals and so forth, because we had a lot of wounded back then. So the idea was transition them back to their communities,
Right.
and have that village, that family, those resources help build that resiliency so that individual can transition. But that's what the theme of the of 2003 all the way up to current now was, transitioning and making sure that we build upon the real resiliency that the military has given them, but help them with that transition for our wounded, ill, and injured. And even though you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink, right? One of those things. But if you're active duty, you can drown the son of a, we know that, but while you're transitioning out and you become that civilian transitioning, for some reason, that momentum of that individual is losing legs, if you look at the resources that we have in the military. As a sergeant major, that was one of my core principles as a senior enlisted advisor, to make sure I knew, who was, the retention, right? Who we're retaining, who's re-enlisting, and who's transitioning out. Those are two main things that I had my finger on, because that's manpower, that's joint cost allocations and so forth, for a commander to take his unit to combat and so forth. So transitioning service members, as a sergeant major, I understand completely. But believe it or not, it was the leadership in the military, Josh, that kept and hampered our service members transition effectively and properly, because of the number one, they're loyal to their team, number one, right? So it's an inner thing. And then number two, you have commanders that are prepping for the battlefield, and they want to utilize all that resources and that expertise before that individual transitions out. So we all know how that goes.
Yeah.
So here we are, mission possible. And one of the things I wanted for DVNF, and I'm going to hand it over to Dr. Marty, is that, as a wounded warrior, as a sergeant major, I wanted something out there that, didn't throw medication on anxiety, on all life challenges. There's a pill for everything. And sadly, sometimes that pill helps them get through that moment. And I'm not saying that medication is bad, but I wanted something that can actually, help me manage my life challenges, understanding my mindset, mind, body, and spirit, and then reading on Dr. Martin Rossman and the things that he accomplished throughout his years and his expertise. That's when we created Mission Possible. And I believe that if we attack daily, weekly, short term as a mission, we can accomplish anything as a veteran. And I feel that all life challenges can be managed. I think Mission Possible and its tools can help them build upon that resiliency, and help them through those life challenges. So that's why I have you here, because your Spartan program is spot on, and it's in parallel with our mission statement, within the Disabled Veterans National Foundation. So I'm honored to have you here. I want to know more about your Spartan, program, and what motivates you the most. Where's your heart? That's what I want to know. I want to know where your heart's at. Dr. Marty Rossman?
No, I think we should let Josh answer that. I mean, there's so many thoughts that go through when Josh was talking before.
Mm-hmm.
One of the thoughts that I had was that, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but what I heard is that, and what I think is true, is that so many people in the military, just like first responders and like medical people, are different than other people in one particular way. And the way is that where there's trouble or pain or a problem, we tend to move towards it, whereas most people will move away from it. And so that military people are people of service. And when I heard Josh say, I really missed that, being part of a community of service, at least that's how I heard it.
Yeah.
And, wanting to move forward that, which is one of the things, Joe, that I think Josh and a couple of the other guests have, whose programs bring people together. And Mission Possible, which is a skills-based training, and there's some nice things about it. It teaches a lot of the skills of resiliency. It's it's free, it's self-paced, you don't have to go anywhere. So those are advantages for sort of the introverted person in a way.
Right.
But I think one of the things that ultimately we would hope to do is find a way to perhaps build it into a training or make it available to people who are training people to train other people like you are, Josh, in terms of, and I don't know if you've had a chance to look at the program, but I wonder what your thoughts are about that vis-a-vis what you're already training people to mentor.
I could say our members, they want to continue to grow. These are all veterans. They've had leadership training. These are families of the fallen who have experienced some of life's greatest challenges. And they come to us wanting to continue to grow. That's our model, is about first investing in those people, in those veterans and families of the fallen. We have different trainings. Joe, you mentioned our 7-month Spartan Leadership Program, which is an intensive 7-month program that we put them through in person as well as virtual and self-paced. And those people, they want to continue to develop. They want to continue to grow and to learn. And then they want to take that. And the second part of our model is giving them positions, putting them into positions to leverage their leadership to serve others. We mentioned the character program. We also have 40 chapters around the country that partner with civilians in their local neighborhood and continue to serve and fill local needs. And that's, so yes, I think your program is great. I think that the skills that you are teaching would be great additions to the work that we're doing. The complicated thing about mental health and well-being and resilience and some of these other, they're not one faceted. It's not one thing. These are multifaceted. There's all different, we talk about mental health. There's all different types of mental health conditions that people suffer. So many of them before they join the military, and then compounded by what happened during the military. But there's a difference between somebody who has increased anxiety or depression or post-traumatic stress or some of these other things. I'm helping one of my friends who's a veteran right now, who is bipolar and was bipolar before he joined the military, and it's become more pronounced since, and some of the things that he's gone through has made it more pronounced since. But these are all different conditions, and they need all different solutions. And I do think that our bodies are made up of chemicals, and there's a place for medicine, and there's certainly that is one factor, and that can help a lot of people. It's not right for everybody, but it certainly helps certain conditions. I also want to add there's a spectrum for each of those conditions, right? There's having all of us experience anxiety from time to time, coming out of public appearances. I still experience some anxiety. And then there's increased anxiety, and there's a whole spectrum. The same for depression, the same for PTS, the same for all these things. There's different types of issues, and then within each issue, there's a different spectrum of how we feel. So medicine is sometimes right, sometimes it's not right. And then the different skills that we learn, I think are all helpful. And then I just keep coming back to that sense of community. I think that the most important thing is that every single person have a sense of community. And I don't care where you get it. If you want to serve alongside Travis Manion Foundation, you are welcome to join our community. This is the right one for me. I will say right now, it's not the right one for everyone. My wife, she's a fitness instructor, and she has her community with the people that she works out with. That's her community. I have some friends who are very religious, and their church or their temple or their mosque or
absolutely.
And so I don't really care how people get that sense of community. Just make sure you have it. Because I heard one time one of our board members, Joe, someone you'll know well, General Dunford.
Right.
He made
I worked for Joe Dunford.
He did great. So He's a smart guy, and he gave a
Yes, he
quote
is.
one time. He said something that you can't be resilient and alone. And that really struck me. You know, I think he's that thought is just so spot on. You know, that you need each other, right? Like we all need each other during the
Absolutely.
good times and the bad. And when things go bad, you need people around you who care about you, who support you. And likewise, you know, it's so built into us as the military environment is you take care of the person to the left and to the right of you. And so, you know, I think about that all the time when I think about resilience. Like, I think the skills are important. But having that sense of community, having that support network around you, investing in it in the good times, having it there for the bad times, helping other people out when they need it, having them there when you need it. I think there's so many. It's all of these solutions together that I think is the solution, not one thing.
I agree with you, Josh. And you're talking about all these attributes, right? Positive attributes. Those are the resources that we need to work through all life challenges, right? Let it be transition out of the military. You made mention that, you landed right into a job that you felt that it was a good fit for you at the time, and it still is actually. You're doing wonderful things, of course. But others may not have that because, as you have the TAP separation out of the military. And believe it or not, it falls under one source. And there's so many great programs that start 12 months, 300, some odd days prior to somebody separating out of the military. But now, as you know, you're working 6 months, for a workup. And then even if you transition, you're training that junior individual, and then you got that selfishness of the leadership, right? And then this individual's losing that time, that 12 months, the 6 months out, then now they're at 90 days. And now they're at 45 days, which we all witness a lot of that in our junior individuals. And then they're falling by wayside and not transition out. So I do blame, number one, I do blame certain leadership. As a sergeant major, on my watch, I can guarantee you individuals transition up the time allotted because that's what I fought for. Because we fight for them to be the best Marine, the best sailor, the best soldier for the battlefield, right? We train as if we fight. Well, we need to train as if we're fighting on transitioning out of the military as well. And I think that's where the broken arrow is, right? And then you have these individuals with PTSD, right? That's happening right now. Mental health is huge. They're with that small unit, with their buddies. We self-medicate through humor, right? Alcohol, whatever the case is. And then, we're excited to get home. They go their way, I go mine. First 18 months, I'm trying to figure things out. Mom, dad, or friends may not understand my mindset and my operational tempo at that point. And then that pure sounding board's not there. All right. And we started falling by wayside. Mine starts racing, and then sadly, suicide falls within the 18 to 32-month span is when we start seeing suicide among veterans and all that. But if we talk about the definition of what resiliency is, what is resiliency? Because your foundation is building that within Spartan, or reminding that, or self-improvement to get them back on track in terms of resiliency. But Dr. Martin Rossman, what is resiliency? What's your definition of what resiliency is?
Well, I think it's the ability to adapt to or overcome challenges, and your phrase of all life challenges can be managed. It's being able to get knocked down and get back up again is basically what it is in the face of challenges. And some people have it in spades and some people don't have it. We know that it can be learned. And in researching, and I don't know if either of you have experience with this Army program, the Comprehensive Soldier, what is Soldier Fitness 2, which, was developed by a colleague of mine, Martin Seligman, who's sort of the father in psychological circles of positive psychology, and developed this for the Army back in, I think, 2010, 2011. It had hundreds of thousands of people through it. So I don't know if you were, Josh was nodding, if you were exposed to it, and if that's part of what you're talking about, Joe, that's available to people, but it takes time. And what I hear you saying is some of them are getting kind of squeezed for time before they get out and don't have the time to go that way. But it's basically teaching people skills. There are different skills. It has a lot to do with connection. It has to do with things that we do teach in Mission Possible: problem solving, planning, weeding your mental garden, becoming aware of your own worldview and your own habitual thoughts and doing something about that, the ability to self-regulate, the ability to step back and have a clear mind in the face of a confusing situation, which I know has to be a important skill for somebody in combat.
Well,
So, what's your experience been with that? Do people, were either of you exposed to that? Is that something that?
Oh, definitely. We were both exposed. I mean, and the major can tell you this. I mean, as an officer, he trains his staff NCOs, and staff NCOs train their NCOs on accomplishment, short, long-term goals for the mission, from creating a spot report to 5-paragraph order and following it through. I mean, then training is all involved in all that. But resiliency in the military and leadership it's embedded. It's from, from his ROTC days and the Naval Academy, from boot camp and so forth. It's a seed that's planted and it's cultivated with leadership that's been there before you. And that's just a fact. So I can tell you this, the veterans, I mean, the service members that I know I work with, they're problem solvers. We teach them to be problem solvers. Our non-commissioned officers, our staff NCOs, our officers have to be game players. They have to be problem solvers. They're tacticians of leadership is what our officers need to be, because that's what our enlisted drill instructors teach our officers. We want them to be tacticians of leadership. We want that in our officers, right? And then what our officers want from our staff NCOs and their leaders is instant obedience to orders, right? Okay. And then, of course, the major has a senior enlisted advisor. You want that individual to give you sound advice in terms of the primary, alternate, and don't do that. One of those things. So that's a very unique team that that the Marine Corps has, and I can speak of that, and I'm proud of that. And I bring a lot of that into the DVNF. My deputy directors, like my sergeant major. My operations officers, like my XO. And I look at that leadership breakdown, and I can see that Josh probably brought that leadership mindset and platform probably to the Travis Manion Foundation. There's no doubt in my mind he brought a lot of that leadership, especially from the Naval Academy. So creating problem solving skills, seeking self-improvement, all those things that Spartan does, believe it or not, Mission Possible, it's going to the gym, it's exercising, learning about yourself, observing yourself, critiquing yourself, and being honest with yourself, and then working through those daily obstacles and so forth. And I tell you this because I always love talking to military folks, Marines alike, of course. I'm not partial, but all kinds of service members. And I talk about leadership. We talk about some of the things that we accomplished and some of the challenges and so forth. And I know you probably have more challenges probably as a reserve. Those last 8 years being on an I&I, because I was Inspector Instructor Sergeant Major. And to bring all that leadership from active duty, I know they probably milked the heck out of you, for our reserve counterparts, to get them trained, because believe it or not, we have more reserve. There's not a war that has been fought, Marty, in this country that our reserves have not been to or fought in. Am I right there, Major? Correct.
Yeah, absolutely. Reserves is challenging. It's something I never knew when I was on active duty. I actually did one exercise when I was on active duty with the reserve unit. And I remember thinking like, oh, they weren't trained as well as us. They weren't as, whatever as we were. And then when I became a reservist and realized, holy cow, like I have my full-time job and then I have this part-time job on top of it. On top of I have, this family with now I have, 3 young children. Reserves is very challenging, but I enjoyed it. I got to, come back. I got to be around the Marine Corps. I got my hair cut every 2 weeks. I got to put on a uniform. It felt good. Now my hair is a little bit longer.
Looking good.
I thought about going to get my hair cut, but we're on vacation, so I'm a little longer than usual. But
well, we definitely appreciate your time today.
Thanks.
I know we have mutual friends and all that, and
I love talking about this topic.
Exactly. But this is a wonderful topic right here. And resiliency. What tools and what leadership traits and principles, Major, have you brought to the Travis Manion? What
Yeah.
are the leadership traits and principles that you learned through the Marine Corps as a Marine Corps officer, as well as the Naval Academy, that sets you up for success in terms of that? But what have you brought? Some of those positive attributes and resiliency that you've learned. I'd be saying, you can be born and not have that mom and dad, interaction, or the village isn't raising the family, and you're struggling and you're on your own, so you're lacking resiliency. You join the military, my story, and I built upon it from that. But what's your story in terms of that? What did you bring to the Travis Manion Foundation?
So I think I bring a lot of the leadership lessons from the Marine Corps to Travis Manion Foundation, and we operate very decentralized. We're a national organization. We have over 200,000 members, and we have 80 staff to take care of those over 200,000 members. So we operate very decentralized, like the Marine Corps. We talk about at the fire team level. Our regions each have teams of 2 to 4 who are leading our programming. So they have to be autonomous. They have to be independent. So, first of all, it's about hiring people that have that mindset. And we talk about our TMF values when we're through every stage of our staff members' life, from the first interview when we're hiring them, to the onboarding, to every training, to every evaluation, to every time that we recognize them, and we have like an employee of the month program. We call it something different, but we call it the pizza slice, and there's a whole story behind that.
Right.
But it all comes back to those TMF values, and 2 of them that I'll mention. The first one is build, measure, learn, repeat, which is all about being autonomous. It's about having that entrepreneur mindset. We want people to build, measure, learn. We want people to try new things. We want them to innovate. We want them to. You can't. In the Marine Corps, we give that power down to the corporals, right? And we say, you're in charge, and they don't have to call back. They don't have to. When you're out there leading a fire team, things are happening. You got to be ready to make decisions, and we want corporals making decisions. That's the same way we are at TMF. We want our regional teams out there who are interacting with the people. We want them to have the ability to make decisions. And of course, we do the commander's intent. We do the goal setting and set those left and right limits, but we give them a lot of autonomy to make decisions. And then the flip side of that, if you want them to try new things and you want them to innovate, is our other TMF value. We say failure is a bruise, not a tattoo, meaning that sometimes you're going to fail, and that's okay. And we learn from that, and we do the good, after actions like we do in the military. We say, why did this fail? Is there something we can do better next time? Or maybe it just wasn't a good idea and we'll stop doing it. But we give people permission to fail, and they don't get slapped around for it. We appreciate that they've tried something new. But when you talk about resilience, to me, like, how do you learn resilience? I have 3 young daughters. I think about this all the time. How do you learn resilience? It comes from failing a lot. It comes from getting knocked down a lot. And after a while, in the military, like, think about boot camp, or it's all about failure. You can't succeed at boot camp. You're going to fail. They're going to make you fail at something. And how do you react when you fail? And you learn how to do that. And throughout the military, we want people to try new things, and we push that authority down to the lowest level, and it doesn't always go well, and you learn from it and you move forward. And that's I think the big lesson for me in the Marine Corps about how do you build resilience. You let people fail. We as the sergeant major, I'm sure you had all the answers, but you didn't give it to them, right? You let your troops make decisions, and sometimes they decided things that were different than you, and that was okay in most situations.
Absolutely.
And they did things differently than you, and maybe it didn't go as well as it would have had you just told them the right answer from the start. But then they learn from it, and Absolutely. They become better decision makers, and they become more resilient. And to me, that's how we operate at Travis Manion Foundation. It's all about giving them the power, letting them make decisions, letting them fail sometimes, and learning from it, and building up that muscle of how do you come back from failure.
Well, that goes back to our leadership traits and principles. Right, we teach them our leadership traits and principles, right, and that's that's practicing and understanding acceptance of who you are, number one, right, and then we give them all these power words: J.J. to tie buckle, justice, dependability, all those things, all these power words to help being part of that positive attribute to help them build that resiliency. So we're going to give you leadership traits and principles, All right. We're going to give you pretty much of a template of your daily routine. All right. As a drill instructor, you know, we zeroize. We call it zeroize. So every recruit that comes in, 84 per platoon, and I'm a drill instructor, and you know, I know who my city folks are, I know who my country guys are, you know, and some come with different aggressions, and some come with some type of you know, moral compasses. Others don't, and so forth. So what we do is we teach them the same. You're all zeroids, you're all knuckleheads, you know. And we'll graduate you as we move forward, first and second and third phase of recruit training and all that. But we teach them how to dress, how to shave, how to talk, how to walk, you know, and then we give them small and short-term goals and accomplishments and things of that through our basic training and all that. But when they get to the fleet, it's built upon, right? So the question is, where do we lose them? All right. So the Marine Corps, the military, they have all these resources and platforms, right? Where do we lose them? So here they are committing suicide in the military, right? Before they deploy, after they deploy, you know, never deployed, you know, and it could be family and marriage. It could be the residue, the luggage that they brought when they came in the military. So now we have this individual going through, you know, being that service member and doing great things. And now it's time to transition. Think in mind that now resiliency, right? We understand what it is and examples of coping and things, but he has a lot of that luggage, right? And here he is, you're throwing another brick in that pack because now he has to transition out. He has that wife, has that child, right? Doesn't have the resources, can't go back to, you know, Albany, New York to live with mom and dad because they're no longer alive or they separated. So there's all kinds of changing landscape and that's happening with these individuals. The reason why I bring up that scenario of a small story is when you get them to a point, well, when you get your applicants, because I know it's an application process for your Spartan program, what kind of veteran are you getting? You know, and what are you building upon so they can graduate and make great decisions, do great things? I mean, so what kind of veteran are you receiving?
Yeah, and so this one program that you're talking about, the Spartan Leadership
Right.
Program, we have over 100 people that apply. We can only take about 30, 35 each year. And because it's an intensive program and that's the right mix of people.
Right.
But, you know, these are the ones who become our volunteer leaders. And I just want to say there's so many other positions and ways for people to get involved in the community that doesn't entail this 7-month program. But for these 30 to 35 people that are involved in the program, you know, it's really about people that are already getting involved in their community. It's people that are already showing that they want to go out and lead others, that they want to be the chapter leaders, or they want to get involved in the character program, that they want to mentor young adults. And so what we're trying to do is make sure that they have the tools to transition that leadership that they learned in the military to the civilian world. It's a lot of the principles and the values, like we talked about, are the same, but the applications are different. You know, as a chapter leader in Minnesota, you know, your responsibilities are different, right? And so a lot of it is learning, how do you react when people have mental health problems? You know, how do you identify some of the warning signs? How do you make sure that you refer them into care? Or how do you pull them into this community? You know, the non-clinical care, I think, is just as important as the clinical care. So making sure that they have the right tools to bring people in. So that's really what we're looking for in those 30 people that are going to go on to become the volunteer leaders, is making sure that they have, one, a good foundation from what they bring from their experience in the military or as a military family or as a family of the fallen. And then two, that how are they going to use that to apply to this new set of problems as parents, as community leaders, as civilian friends.
Awesome.
Where did the kids come from, Josh?
All over. So for the character program, we go to schools, we go to youth groups, we go to sports camps. You know, wherever there's a youth audience, we'll partner with them. So our whole program is about supplementing the good work that teachers are doing in schools, or coaches are doing with sports teams, or Boy Scout, Girl Scout parents are doing with their Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts, or Big Brothers Big Sisters, some of these other groups that are out there who have that sustained relationship over time. We come in and we can bring our program and we can do a presentation, or we can do a course. The courses they're half-day courses, one-day courses. We do semester-long courses where we're coming every Wednesday after school for an entire semester or an entire school year. And so we're trying to partner with the people that are already out there that have these relationships, that are looking for that military angle to come in and talk about character strengths. Dr. Marty, you mentioned Dr. Marty Seligman, who started positive psychology. All of our programs are underpinned with positive psychology. That's why I was shaking my head.
Right.
I'm very familiar with Dr. Seligman, his work with positive psychology. We've actually adopted the 24 character strengths that positive psychology created. And so we have a lesson plan for each of those character strengths that talk about the definition, gives a story about somebody who demonstrated it, and then an activity to either go out and do a CrossFit workout talking about integrity and teamwork, or take them out to do yoga and talk about self-control, or do an improv and talk about moral courage, so that these kids, it's not an academic class. These veterans are doing something very hands-on, and then we have discussions and bring it back to the character strength. But these kids, they come from all over the country. Some of them are from all different places, all different walks of life, all different experience, all different, and anyone who, in my view, everyone needs character development. So we're looking for all the young adults who are looking to be a part of it.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, I noticed on your website, I wonder if you'd say, so there was a place on your website where you said one of the main things you're working towards is to address divided citizenry.
Yeah.
And I wonder if you'd say something about that. And
yeah, so I look at what makes the military special. And you think about how we come in and they shave our heads and they make us all look the same and they break us all down, and then we build them back up. And you think about how you serve together, how you go through hardship together, how you learn to have conversations with people that look different than you or have very different experiences than you, that have different religious beliefs or political beliefs, people that came from money, people that didn't. And we turn all those people into one cohesive team. And then I think about how can we take that model and bring it to communities around the country. And so we try to replicate a lot of those same things. We bring people together through hardship. We serve together, sometimes in different environments. Joe talked about the Spartan Leadership Program. We take them in the middle of that program, that 7-month program. We take them for 1 week to Colorado, led by Major Brian Shantosh, who is another Marine that maybe, Joe, you've interacted with over the years. And he takes them hiking through the mountains of Colorado for a week and reminds them of some of the challenging things they did while they were still active duty, all the while talking about leadership and talking about different applications of how do we take this stuff that we learned in the military and apply it to what we're doing now. And then we go back to our communities and we bring people together. We bring them together through athletic events, through service events, all in the name of fallen heroes. So we have like a common theme that we all believe in, right? That our country and those who gave their lives in defense of our country, and to give them a common cause, service, hardship, all these things, and the end result is we find that it brings people together. It's the one thing that people can agree on. In a country where so many things people can find ways to disagree. This is one thing that people can agree on.
It's esprit de corps. You're trying to build that the atmosphere for the environment, that familyness, that brotherhood again. And that's something that's very unique in the Marine Corps. Not like any other branch of service. The Marine Corps is just very, very unique in terms of how we feel about each other, the respect and so forth, and how we climb that leadership ladder. Yeah, and I think that's very important as well. And then when I spoke earlier, where individuals that transition out, they lose that, and they don't know how to find that with the resources around them, or they don't know how to look for organizations and companies that need leadership, or they have structure. Most individuals that leave the military, they want that structure because that structure was a template for them to move forward and host and to collaborate to help them, solve problems. Because now that they're out, they don't have that structure. They don't have that no defect mentality mindset, because that's the way it was in the Marine Corps, or the military, of course. And now that they're out, they don't have that big brother looking over them. So they're going from 99 miles an hour, and then they're forced to drive about 25. And I know Marty thinks I'm about what, Marty, about 80, 85 still, or what? Since I've been out, but yeah, and then organizations like yourself, or organizations like the Disabled Veterans National Foundation, will be fund other nonprofits like yourself, And we're looking to, as DVNF, we want to be that national organization to build resiliency within communities. And now you're a national organization, Josh, and what you folks do, I think, is a valuable asset for any community to help them build resiliency of our young individuals, especially transitional service members trying to find their way into within their community. So I applaud you on that. What does it cost to you said about 30 a year? What does it cost for one individual to go through the course?
It's about $10,000 per individual. For 7 months, we do 3 in-person events. So one at the beginning for 3 days where we just bombard them with information and they meet each other, and it's the initial onboarding of the program. We get them together in the middle for that 1 week expedition in Colorado that I was mentioning, hiking,
Right.
talking leadership. And then we have a graduation at the end. In between, they meet every 2 weeks virtually. There's different topics, different podcasts, different books, different articles they read, and then they meet every 2 weeks to discuss it and bring it home. So the total cost of 7 months is about $10,000 per individual.
Well, I'll tell you what we're going to do today. We're going to DVNF will award Travis Manion Foundation $10,000 today. I'll send you an award letter after this, Josh. So make sure you
That's
give
awesome.
me the address that you need to check to be served. I believe in what you're doing, honestly. I really do.
Thank
I
you.
like that you're building upon the remnants of resiliency or reminding them how to cope and what resources are available. And, when I grew up, and I know Marty as well, and I know Marty's a lot younger than I am, but we had more resiliency within our communities. Am I right, Marty? I mean, come on. And Marty, you grew up in the 60s and the 70s. You've been through the Vietnam era, 50s, and Korean War following, and then Vietnam following that and so forth. But have you seen the landscape of our societies lacking in moral compass and resiliency and problem solving? You don't see the village coming out anymore.
No, you don't. I mean, at best, we've got 2 villages, and they're on the brink of war all the time. They don't trust each other. They don't like each other. There's a lot of projection. There's a lot of inflammation around that, I think, through the media, both the mainstream media and social media. So I think divided citizenry is really a huge problem. I don't have certainly the solution for that, because it's badly polarized. I have friends who are on the other team as far as I'm concerned.
Right.
And we can't talk to each other. We have lost the ability to really talk to each other, because I know that in spite of my desire to be a problem solver and a peacemaker and reach across the gulf and so on, I have to admit there's a part of me that just cannot believe that they believe what they seem to believe, and they feel the same way about me. And there's just places we can't go on that no man's land between
Right.
the front lines. So that's
Sadly,
huge.
Marty,
What's that?
sadly, today's narrative doesn't help, an individual that you're trying to save within a village or community, Josh, as well as Mission Possible, as well as a capacity building grant program. And I mean, there's so many resources out there that we don't throw, but they're out there. And like you made mention earlier, Josh, you said that, there's not one shoe that fits everyone. And you're absolutely right, and I agree with you. But imagine if we communicate together as CEOs and COOs and prior military guys, and we just collaborate together, and I want to give you our best as DVNF, as Mission Possible. Not only are we going to award you 10,000, but you're going to communicate with me, and once we open our capacity building grant legacy fund, we're going to put you in for a bigger award, but it'll be a grant, of course, and there'll be stipulations for you, that we meet. But I definitely want to be a part of your mission, because you're a national organization. You're teaching how to strengthen resiliency that maybe has not been grown appropriately or lost at some point, or there's confusion. But there's a lot of stresses Josh, with that transition out of the military. And there's a lot of stresses. There's luggage that we're carrying, understanding, why am I holding on to things, right? And we go back to, it has to go back to mission possible. All life challenges can be managed. And what tools? We go to the gym, right? I went to the gym, I lift out a little bit. I do the treadmill, I do this, but do I ever sit down and do I ever think about, what's happening in my brain housing group, how am I managing my life challenges? Why do I hold on to things I can't hold on to? What can I do to understand that a little bit more? And what practices are out there where I can help, myself, root and tighten and strengthen that moral compass so I can accomplish that task and so forth. So that's what Mission Possible is. It's like that mindful gym, that anyone can go to, and we can just take that time, and we spoke about this prior, Marty and I, but folks buy that treadmill, and what happens? They run 2-3 miles, and it becomes a laundry hamper, right? And then there's boxes and things on that treadmill. Mission Possible, it's a tool. It's a self-paced tool, journal, and so forth. We have an app and so forth. And I'm hoping that that your organization can use the free tool.
We can. I've already looked into it. I think you have a great tool, and I think that you help develop important skills. So, I just, first of all, I want to say thank you for the grant and what you said before. I think that's part of the financial piece, but then also making available your tools to our members, I think is incredible. So thank you for that partnership.
You're most welcome.
And I couldn't agree with you more. What you said, it's just getting people out there doing it. I'll bring it back to a non-military example. My 3 daughters, I have a 12-year-old and a 9-year-old. And you know what? They didn't want to go to the swim meet the other day. We make them swim, right? They don't want to swim. They want to play with their friends all summer. They're on a swim team because they have to wake up at 7:30. They have to go to practice at 8:30. I think it's important. I think it's important when there's no school, you have something that makes you wake up every day, do something physical, and then go play with your friends. Well, then they didn't want to go to the first swim meet. They had anxiety. They're 12 and 9, and they're swimming against them. It's competition. Usually they're on team sports. They play soccer. So this is an individual sport. I grew up a wrestler, so I know how important team sports are, and also individual sports. So I like that they're swimming against other people, and they feel that anxiety. And we talk about resilience. How do you build resilience? How do you build all these skills that we're talking about? You got to get out there and do it. You just got to feel that feeling, that nervous feeling of competing against somebody. That's good for you to experience what that feels like. And the more you experience that, the more comfortable you feel with that. The more times, I'm not going to tell you they won. The best
absolutely
at 8 events between the 2 of them. The best one. One of my daughters took second in one of her events, and then they took a couple thirds and a couple fourths.
Right.
They didn't win, but you feel that. You feel maybe you're proud that you took second, or maybe you're not happy that you took fifth, and you feel that, and then you practice a little harder the next day because you want to do a little bit better or whatever. And that's how you get better on all these skills. You got to get out there and do them. You can't sit in your house and play video games, right? Like the veterans that I see, step one is just getting them out of their house. And it's almost like, I almost feel like sometimes it's like a little trick that we play with them. It's like, we want you to get out of your house to go serve and mentor kids. You're doing it for them, right? Because veterans are very quick to help other people. We're not so quick to ask for help.
Absolutely.
So it's like a little like bait and switch. It's like, come help us by mentoring these other kids. And then while you're mentoring the other kids, now you start to become friends with the other mentors. Now you start to become part of this community and build up that relationship with other veterans and with non-veterans too. Like, you can't just be veterans. It's got to be the whole, the whole network. So that's our whole thing, is just get them out of the house. Just get them to join the community. That's step one.
Well, and Marty knows this phrase, and I know you know this as well there, Joshua, but complacency kills, right?
Absolutely.
Right. We understand that because, well, more so for service members that are transitioning, because we're so used to work at that high op tempo, and we're always moving. And then when we get to the civilian world, we're transitioning out, and it's not, 24/7, now my mind is getting complacent, and now I'm bringing up, old issues and anxieties and so forth and so forth. But this is something that Marty and I spoke about as well. We're seeing a lot of anxiety at the lower age group of children. It's like we're growing anxiety. I'm seriously, anxiety to me for a young child is because lack of coping skills for I took your toy away, I got anxiety, or I want you to be outside more than be on social media and so forth. It's just it's like we see more anxiety now with social media and young children than we did when we were growing up, and so forth and so forth. So I think and I know this is one of Marty's pet peeves as well, is the media and their narration and everything that we see and do. It's like it's like almost negative out there, and you're fighting against that negative, and you're trying to problem solve against that negative, vice just turning it off, and dealing with your life challenges for that moment. But we do have a question. I want to just move this over. Marty, you want to take this question from Gary, or not question, but comment and so forth?
Well, there's a couple of let's see, there was one. I'm in the wrong place. Let me go. One of our one of our people said, I think trying to be conscious of the push to divide, the push to lump people into one group or the other, and us and them will at least help us to avoid falling into that trap. It'll help realize that building each other up is what we should focus on, and that's certainly what both of these organizations are doing. Somebody asked, is there an equivalent program for veterans who live in Europe?
Not that I know of. I mean, I'm sure. I mean, we fought with, the Brits, the British, we did a lot of bump satellite patrolling with them in the infantry and so forth. And I know they got strong resiliency. They're tacticians in the battlefield, and they're a wonderful group of individuals. I can only speak for their strength and their leadership that I've seen, but there has to be good programs behind that to keep them at that level. That's just my thought in terms of that. But I couldn't answer that. What about yourself there, Josh?
Yeah, I was going to say there's a lot of stuff that is virtual. We consider ourselves hybrid, so not so much the in-person side of things, but certainly there's some trainings and some of the virtual things that we do that are you could be anywhere in the world and benefit from. I think the same for Mission Possible, right?
Yeah, exactly.
A lot of the skills that you're teaching.
Yeah, resiliency comes. I mean, it's just when I think about resiliency, I think about problem solving. What tools do I have to work through this situation? And I'm glad that I found Dr. Marty Rossman and Mission Possible and the tools that's valued with it. And I'm meeting many individuals, and we have close to 2,700 that are registered users for Mission Possible. It's free. It's always going to be free. It's going to be free for all the veterans that kept our country free and continue to keep it free. And I'll tell you what, Josh, I love what you're doing. I'm hoping that we can build a stronger rapport and relationship as we move forward and away from Mission Possible. But I like what you're doing, and I'm hoping that that award is used for a veteran that can utilize those leadership traits and principles, and learning them to accept who they are before they move forward. And I think that's important as well, as accepting who you really are. And so if you want to know who you are, what tools or what program do we have in Mission Possible, or what tier do we have in Mission Possible, Marty, that can help somebody practice acceptance and understanding who they are?
Well, I think just about all of them actually center around that. It's it's the first thing in knowing who you are is kind of backing up and taking a look at yourself and getting kind of an objective look, as opposed to kind of being trapped by your ideas of who you are. And that's, so that observer exercise we teach is the first step in that. The ability to get quiet and observe at the same time, that allows you to observe not only the world around you, but the world inside yourself. Becoming aware of your what they call automatic negative thoughts, or ants, the things that are just deeply programmed into you, we call it weeding your mental garden, becoming aware that those are, that you can pull weeds. It's possible to become aware of those and not invest energy in them, and plant vegetables or flowers or things that you want, and cultivate them, and water them, pay attention to them, and they become part of yourself. There's the action planning skills, the problem solving skills that we have in there. There's a technique called building positive qualities, where where you take the qualities that you do want to build. Again, these are action. It's funny because on the one hand, they're guided, they're mental skills, and they're,
Mhm.
like you said, it's equivalent to going to the gym and building your muscles, except you don't get to see it the same way. It's invisible, and you don't get to calibrate it in the same way, and that makes it for many people a little bit difficult. But if you want to cultivate something in yourself, you want to cultivate positivity, you want to cultivate courage, you want to cultivate strength, you want to cultivate patience, you want to cultivate compassion. If those are those are qualities that you believe in and that you have in yourself, but you want to build them, you can do that mentally by rehearsing and practicing and noticing when you're using it and when you're not using it. And so it's like the inner game. And what
Mhm.
I love about what the Travis Manion Foundation is doing and some of these other organizations you've introduced us to, Joe, is the connecting with people, the getting out of the house and connecting with community. So if people are bringing their whole selves, their whole inner selves, and they're working on their inner selves, but they're connecting with others and they're connecting with the community and they're feeling of service, um, I think it's the best of all possible worlds. And so,
Absolutely.
I'll offer one of our trainings, which is one of my favorite. We call it Leading with Your Strengths, and anybody can go join to go to our website, travismanion.org, join the mission, and anybody can get access to our learning management system, what we call the Spartan Development Center. And one of our trainings is called Leading with Your Strengths, and it's borrowed from positive psychology and the 24 character strengths. We teach people what the basics of positive psychology, the components of well-being, and then you actually take an assessment that lists your top character strengths, what they call your signature character strengths.
Mhm.
And so I think a big part of understanding yourself is understanding first what are your strengths, because positive psychology is all about take the things that you do really good and then think about how to apply them in your job, in how you serve others, in your family, in all the different ways. And I could tell you, like, one of the mistakes I made as Second Lieutenant Jabin was I thought it was always my job to find people's weaknesses. I thought my job was to figure out what are people doing wrong and then put them into position to help make them better at the things they did poorly. And it took me years of leadership to realize to do the opposite, figure out what people do really well, and then put them in position to do those things. And I've been much more successful focusing on the strengths than focusing on the weaknesses. So that's what we do. We teach people. They take the values and actions survey from positive psychology, and it teaches them their top strengths, their top character strengths. And then just like Marty was saying, and then the idea is to use those strengths and to go out and think about how do I apply this to everything that I'm doing. One of my top strengths is hope, right? And hope is not blind hope. It's about setting goals and working hard to achieve them, and thinking about how do I apply that to how I serve my community? How do I apply that to my job? How do I apply that to being a father or a husband? Sense of humor is another one. So, they're not prescriptive either. It's not like sense of humor is my character strength, so I should go become a comedian. But it's about how do I take my sense of humor and use it in the right way within my job or within my different roles.
Absolutely.
we just have a couple minutes left, and Gary wrote something very important to address, and he said, how can someone start to address a lack of resilience if they feel that nothing matters, even if they're successful at becoming stronger and more resilient, it would do nothing good. It's hard to take the steps to try, even when the success seems pointless and so hard to grasp or conceive of. And that's depression, Gary. And
Absolutely.
it's actually something that goes back to Marty Seligman's initial work, which was on learned helplessness, where they put laboratory dogs in a cage that they couldn't escape from, and they would get random shocks periodically, and the dogs would get depressed and lay on the bottom of their cage. They wouldn't eat, they wouldn't drink, they wouldn't react to a female dog in heat. They would just lay there. They were helpless. They had learned that nothing mattered and that there was nothing they could do. And the only treatment, and then he tried all kinds of things to get the dog, they took the top off the cage so the dog could jump out, and they would still lay on the bottom. They were not even imprisoned in the cage. And what they found was that what needed to happen is they needed to grab the dog by the scruff of the neck and lift him out of the cage.
Mhm.
and put them outside the cage. And once they did that, the dog would jump out of the cage, they'd start to eat, they'd start to drink, they'd start to get interested in female dogs. So if you can't do it yourself, you've got to reach out. You've got to reach
Absolutely.
for help. You've got to connect with an organization. You have to use the many resources that are out there for veterans, and connect with somebody who's going to help you take those first steps. And once you start taking steps and you have some success, then hopefully it's going to light your fire and get you going. Do you guys have anything to add to that?
And I definitely agree with what you just said, Marty. And with DVNF, our website, we have a national job board, just to let you know, Joshua. And we also have a bunch of resources as well. We have a resource platform as well. And for Gary, this individual, please visit our website, www.dvnf.org. How we help. You'll see resources, you'll see our programs and so forth, and we can contribute to hopefully giving you a pathway forward. Please utilize us. But like Marty said, Dr. Martin Rossman, there are many resources out there, and just please feel free to reach out to DVNF. We can help you direct or whatever, but absolutely right. You got to put yourself out of that one there, brother. What about you there, Josh? Any pending last words here?
Well, that was pretty strong, what we just heard. I just want to address that really quickly. And my advice to whoever wrote that comment is one step at a time.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't have to solve everything at once, just one step at a time. And there's great clinical support available. You can contact us and we can connect you to some great clinical support. We have partners that do that. I believe in that. I believe in therapy. I've experienced therapy. It's worked for me. It's worked for my family members. It's worked for my friends. Medicines do work depending on the situation. I'm not saying it's right in all situations, but I'm saying that is one option depending on what's going on in your life. That may be one option. And then I also strongly believe in the non-clinical solutions. And I know, Joe, you and I believe in this together, but Travis Manion Foundation is a non-clinical approach to mental health and well-being. Going out there and serving with other people, being a part of our community. These are non-clinical approaches, and it's not a either or. It's a yes and. It's all the above. But just take one step. Do one thing today. Go out and serve somebody else. They've shown that a sense of purpose by serving others is one of the strongest things you can do for yourself.
Absolutely.
So but just do one thing today. Travis Manion, before he went back for his second, what would be his final tour of duty in Iraq, he was asked why he had to go back. His answer was, if not me, then who? Those are the 5 words that power everything that we do. And it's all about serving others, putting other people before yourself. And I promise you, if you do that, just do one thing for somebody else today, you will feel the benefits as well. And then that will start the cascade. That'll create some inertia to take step 2, and then step 3 and step 4. So just go out and take step 1 today.
Absolutely. You said it perfectly, I'll tell you the truth. Marty, why don't you close us out? Dr. Marty Rossman.
Thanks, Joe. Joseph VanFonda, Josh Jabin. Is it Jabin or Jabin? Jabin. Okay, great. Doing wonderful work and making resources available to help veterans help themselves and help others. That's what it's all about, and we're all in it together, whether we know it or not. And there's a lot of people and a lot of organizations out there to reach out for some help. Everybody needs help sometimes. There's no shame in it. And
absolutely,
we hope that you'll do that. And thank you, gentlemen, for being with us here on July 4th weekend. And we'll see you next time.
All right. We believe all life challenges can be managed. Mission possible. Joshua is wonderful, brother. We'll talk soon. Marty, take care, my brother.
Take care, Joe.
Will do.